Hey everyone, and welcome back to Earl Grey. We are joined in the studio by Bianca Scanlan, who is one of the executive producers of Get Cereal. This is a flagship show, like SYN's flagship breakfast show, and she is here to tell us a little bit about how she got involved with SYN and all of the cool things she's got going on at the moment.
That I am. It's definitely. I feel like I've got more going on than I thought I did, but I'm definitely curious to talk about it.
Yeah, so you told me that you got started with SYN in 2020. So what was that like in lockdown?
So I technically started in 2019. I did my induction in the very last batch of induction in 2019, which didn't really give me any time to join a show. I joined up with, funnily enough, Get Cereal, Sports Desk, Mosh Pit, and Player One for my first season. Almost immediately regretted having 4 shows because it was way too much to do. And I got roughly maybe 2 months worth of, maybe 1.5 months of being in studio before lockdown hit. And we all kind of had to move to Zoom, or Teams. Some people moved to Teams. It was weird. That's probably the best way to put it. It was very strange to move down there. Um, I think I preferred being in studio. Looking back, I definitely think I do. Um, but I didn't mind Zoom. It gave its own personality, I guess, where everyone kind of had a different, I guess, feel and mood to it. I spent most of my time in the first year working with Mosh Pit, which is the metal show it's in, and that was absolute dream. Fantastic show to be a part of. And after that, I was also editing for Player One at the time. After that, moved into being the EP for Player One while we were still in lockdown, and having EP'd afterwards. EPing during lockdown was hard. We had a big team. I think we had roughly 20 people in Player One. It was massive. There was an argument that we'd outgrown SYN for a little while because we were starting to outgrow when we were getting booked. But I guess being in COVID and lockdown allowed us to get interviews that we didn't expect we'd get, opportunities that we didn't expect we'd get because, we can't go to PAX or anything like that. They're not running. So all of the people who would go to these events and would be special guests are all of a sudden wanting to do interviews so they can still do something. That was so much fun because I got to talk to some of my heroes from the industry. I got to speak to Grant Kirkhope, who
Who is he?
so Grant Kirkhope is a composer who composed the music for Donkey Kong 64, Banjo-Kazooie, Banjo-Tooie. He was involved in the music for GoldenEye 007, and he's done a whole bunch of stuff ever since. I grew up on him. I loved his music. It's always been the little brain rot in the back of my head where the little tunes will play over and over and over and over. And getting to talk to him and actually build a bit of a relationship with him was so much fun. I will never forget 2 things from that. Firstly, he sung Happy Birthday to one of the hosts during the interview. And look, myself and the host there, we were all terrified. And I remember
Why?
because he was huge. He was like all of our childhood heroes. He did that, and all 3 of us were tearing up in oh my god, he's singing Happy Birthday. What? And even before that, some of the conversations he was having, a lot of us look up to him. And he was like, yeah, I toured with Van Halen, a small indie artist. I kissed him even. But, I wasn't really working at the time, so it didn't really matter. And it's what? You can't just do that. But a lot of people like that we took a lot of inspiration from during that time. It was so much fun to do that. But again, COVID was such a weird time to do anything. Zoom interviews sucked. Trying to organize that with random people on the internet essentially sucks so bad. And you don't get, I guess, the communication that you do
In
in
person?
studio. Yeah.
I will say I am running interviews on Zoom for most of Earl Grey. So for me, being back in the studio is a weird experience. But I think the one thing that's helped me is being able to leave my house, have real in-person conversations. So then when you go back to Zoom, you're not, like you're in a good headspace.
Exactly.
And so I did Art Smitten during that lockdown period. And for me, I felt, again, I know Simran, who was really nice, she was the executive producer at the time. She kept on checking in to see how we were going. But for me, I just felt really, really isolated. And so essentially I would do I would do these Zoom interviews for Art Smitten, but then I would have pretty much no communication with the rest of the hosts. I was not doing those host discussions. And on Get Serial, if you guys go and listen to the podcast of this, we had a bit of a discussion with Annabelle and Bianca earlier about Star Trek. And I'm like, I just remember sitting there and just being like, I miss this.
It's so much fun to be able to gush in front of someone and not in front of a camera. It's, I don't know, it's one of those things where it's the human connection that you get from it is amazing. Like you mentioned exactly there, the whole you're not connecting with hosts. As the executive producer that year, it was so hard to feel like I'm getting people invested in the show. I did everything I could, but we couldn't go out to go get a drink or anything after. We couldn't hang out. None of us were meeting. I worked with Zach and Tom for 2 years, and I worked very closely with them before I met them in person. And it was one of those things where when we met in person, it was very, very almost emotional because it's so long we've just been working through a computer screen. I had no idea what Zach looked like from the shoulders down. It was very strange. I love being back in studio. It's probably the thing that's kept me here is being back. And even at the time when studios went back, I had to give up my position as EP of Player One because we shift out every year or so. And I gave it up. And then the year after they started going back into studio for Player One, I had a little bit of resentment to the fact that I missed the chance to EP in studio. And I actually had a little bit of that jealousy and resentment towards the EPs that were running it then because I had worked with them for so long through Zoom, and I was very excited to hopefully get back in for so long, and then that never happened until I was gone, which felt so, I guess negative, but looking back, I'm happy we're back in studio anyway, and the shows are back, but it's weird. I feel like I'm just a bit of a record repeating. It's very strange.
Yeah, but it is good to be back, and we will be back after the break.
Earl Grey is produced for radio broadcast on SYN.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Earl Grey. We are joined in the studio once again by Bianca Scanlan. She is an executive producer of SYN's flagship breakfast show, Get Serial, and she's going to tell us a little bit about a project that she's working on outside of SYN.
So, yeah, if you followed me if you followed me through SYN, you'll probably notice that I like to talk a lot about animated projects, and the reason I do so is I grew up on them. I never really jumped to live action projects and live action shows at the age that most people did, so I missed out on most of Disney Channel live action and all that kind of stuff, and instead I was watching more animated projects and anime, cartoons, adult animation, and so on. And that's always been really important to me, and it's always kind of been shunned and kind of seen as still kiddie. I mean, even the Oscars do that by still tearing apart animated projects like they're for kids and kids only. And I wanted to talk about my own experience with these shows, review some of my favorites, talk about why I think particular things are good and bad, and put my opinion out there to anyone who might be listening. And we mentioned off air for Get Serial a while ago now that the live action Avatar remake was not good. I have really, really mixed opinions about things like, I guess, live action remakes in general when it comes to How to Train Your Dragon and
Are
such.
we talking about the live action like movie, or are we talking about the Netflix series?
Both really. I think that once it's an animated project, it stays animated, or it should, because there's so much love that gets put into animated projects that gets lost with, boring, mundane live action projects that simply don't live up to their counterparts. Things like The Lion King. Disney's terrible at this, but things like Lion King, that was soulless, and the original movie is fantastic. It's one of my favorites ever. And to see it kind of dumbed down like that hurts, because it's I think the best way to put it is it's someone stepping on the gum that is what I grew up on, and just stepping on it and treating it like crap. So for me to talk about it, lift it back up and say, hey, it's great, go check it out. This is what I think, go do this. Or maybe saying like, hey, go check out this show or this show or this show. Like, I want to talk about Fiona and Cake, the Adventure Time sequel that's for adults. It's really good. Regular show, it's for kids, yes, but it's just really well written. And there are so many artists and writers that don't get, I guess, the respect they need to get, because they're not making live action shows, when often these shows are better than a lot of the other stuff that's going out for kids. And some of them are really, like, they stand the test of time, and they will create even better movies by creating better artists and better writers, and they need to be recognized.
Yeah, and I do want to mention that animation, because I know I've kind of grown up around a lot of people who are like, oh, cartoons are for kids. But animation is its own like art form. And so you lose that art when you take it to live action. Like, if it's meant to be live action, it will be live action. But if it's meant to be a cartoon, it should stay, and use all of the artistic elements available in that medium.
That's exactly it. It's small things like recent movies. I'll bring up Into the Spider-Verse. There's talks right now at Sony that they want to make that live action, and I'm genuinely baffled as to, like, why would we ever do that? The animation in that movie literally changed the industry, something that hadn't been done in years, and it's fantastic. Anime is a great example. I won't get into it now, but like the amount of times I've watched anime and been like, this is some of the best stuff I've ever watched. And I will catch myself crying at the end of episodes, or falling in love with how particular characters are written, the inspirations behind it that I just don't get, I guess, with modern live action stuff.
Yeah, I agree with you. I won't say that I'm like a huge animation watcher, but I have seen a series that I loved on Netflix called Violet Evergarden.
Yep.
And yeah, I just remember watching that and just being like, if they made this into a live action, it would seem way too dark. But because it's animated, we see it as a story of healing and growth and personal development.
Well, that's exactly it. A lot of the people who, I guess, turn these things into live action and don't recognize how important these shows are, simply, this sounds cruel, but I don't think they're that good of a writer. If you can't look past and see the theming that is really important and really great. Like, again, I'll mention Spider-Verse. Into the Spider-Verse 2. Across the Spider-Verse, I think is the name. That has incredible allegories all over it, especially like a huge trans allegory. And if you lose that by bringing it into live action, you lose a lot. And that's done through the colours that you can't do through live action. It's its own medium and deserves to be treated as if it was I would argue, the better medium. And sometimes it's something I love, and it's something I love to talk about.
I think the reason why everyone's so like set on these live action adaptations is because they're like, oh, well, people aren't watching it because it's animated. But I think that people should give it a chance. And I was talking with you and Annabelle on Get Serial about Star Trek, and I've managed to convince you guys to,
I'll be checking it out, yeah.
Yeah, to give it a chance. So I think you just need to hear a recommendation from someone who...
It really helps, yeah.
Yeah, from someone who likes these kind of shows, and yeah, it will get around, even if it takes a bit longer and it's not instantaneous. The animation genre is more than just kids shows.
Oh, definitely. I think one last point I'll make is I forget the name of it, but 2 years ago, the Oscars made a really embarrassing speech. They talked about specifically, leaving a cartoon on for kids so they don't go do random things. One of the nominations that year was a heartbreaking story animated about a gay man from the Middle East leaving a war-torn home where he wasn't accepted. And that was thrown in the same ballpark as things like just random kids shows like Blue's Clues and so on. And it hurts me to see that because there's so much passion put into these projects. So they do deserve a lot of respect and they just don't get it.
Yeah, well, I hope that Bianca's podcast will recommend some shows for you
Definitely.
to watch. So make sure you go and check it out. And also stay tuned for Earl Grey. We will be back very soon.